Four quick things to look at today. We've got more work about to start in Haberfield on the Greenway shared path. We've got abandoned vehicles taking up valuable on-street parking, how to get annoying trees trimmed back, and we wonder why both these Springback paddles are lying under a tree and how easy it is to reinstall them. If you've been over near the Hawthorn Canal at any point in the last few months, you'll have seen the new path that has been built in stages, as well as being diverted around the work sites. A section of the parking lane along Hawthorn Parade was blocked off this week, and it's going to stay that way until November 30. If you're interested, there's a link in the description to a presentation that I lifted these slides from. Essentially, the Inner West Council is building a 3.5 metre wide shared path from the Bay Run to Marion Street, and I think what they're going to do is rip up the asphalt path that is currently in place between the netball courts and the canal and replace it with a much better concrete path. Well, if you won't be able to go around there, you'll have to use this detour instead. The reason I'm bringing this up is because this diversion made up of big red plastic road barriers is about 1,000 times better than what council set up last year when the netball courts were first installed. Back then, they didn't think about how to divert pedestrians and cyclists around the worksite, so people were left to either walk or run on a narrow bit of grass next to the curb, or in this instance, on the road. Top marks to the council road safety officer and any other staff for ensuring that this time round, vulnerable road users are well catered for. However, I do hope they're going to improve the ramp at each end, because that could be pretty tricky in a wheelchair. We saw this problem last time they did a diversion down at Marion Street. I hope we don't have to go through that rigmarole again. The councils are sometimes reluctant to block off street parking for a project like this because apparently parking is in high demand. Funnily enough, about 100 metres down Hawthorn Parade, I spotted these two rather crusty looking four-wheel drives. It turns out that the reg on one expired in March 2019 and the other in November 2018. Presumably these have been sitting out here rusting for over 2 years, taking up valuable parking spots. I'm doing that in air quotes. Every council has to deal with abandoned cars. Here's one near the tank trap of death in Flavelle Street, Concord. If you're wondering about that, well, we've got a video on it somewhere. And this has been sitting around for maybe 2 years or more. Council said that they didn't want to change the tank trap to make it safe for cyclists because it would remove a parking spot. Boo-hoo. Well, maybe they wouldn't be so worried about removing on-street parking spots if they cleaned up the abandoned cars that are consuming those parking spots just around the corner. Next, we have a simple tree trimming job at the Taverners Hill Light Rail Station. If you've used the loop to get over the Parramatta Road, you'd know that things can get a bit overgrown at times. All it took was logging a request with the Inner West Council using their online contact system, and hey presto, about a week later, you can ride through here without fear of losing your head. It doesn't take much to ask Council to clean up stuff like this. Take 30 seconds out of your ride to stop and take a photo. When you get home, take a minute or two to send an email or log an online request. It really ain't that hard. Lastly, get another look at the Bridge Road cycleway. In case you are interested, the yellow curbs have been bolted down in places, particularly this entry point at the western end. Yes, it is supposed to be narrowed like that. It's to prevent idiots from driving into the lane, and funnily enough, that's exactly what I came across on the other side of the road today, except I stopped for lunch and afterwards I forgot to turn on my cameras, and so I didn't record it. It just would have been great footage. There was a Camry just wedged in the bike lane. Now, when I pulled up behind him, the driver was nice enough to reverse out and let me actually ride on the cycleway, but it was interesting to discover that the path is just wide enough for the front of a clapped out Camry to fit into. One thing that's got me puzzled though is why there are a trio of Springback paddles, and that's the official term, sitting under a tree near the intersection with Lyndhurst Street. Is it that drivers are taking this bend way too fast and sliding out and wiping out the paddles? Or are some truck drivers taking a really wide line and taking them out? I don't know. I watched this driver get his heavy combination with trailer around the bend with no problems and miss it by a mile. And I've seen concrete trucks trundling up the hill also having no problems getting around here without taking out the curb. It could be car drivers are coming out of Lyndhurst Street and they're looking to the right for cars coming up the hill and they aren't watching where they're going. So they see a gap, they put their foot down and they drive straight into the plastic curbing. Well, who knows, it's a mystery. But if car drivers are hitting these paddles, this is a really clear indication that a permanent concrete cycleway is required in this location to stop out-of-control drivers smashing into cyclists from behind. I stopped and had a go at kicking one of these flappy paddles back into a slot in the curb, and it took maybe half a dozen kicks with a size 9 bike shoe to get it mostly into place. And I reckon there's a 50% chance I got it the wrong way around, because yes, they do have two ends. It took maybe 30 seconds to do that, and it's not very hard. I'm not suggesting you do it at all, but it was interesting to see how these things work. Again, unfortunately my cameras were off at this point, so you can't view my handyman efforts. Anyway, that's it for today. Happy riding and be excellent to each other.